Okay, so what we're doing now is creating an EBBA for a buyer. So what we want to do first is we want to find our contact, and we are going to create an opportunity. So we're going to go to opportunities here in command, and then we're going to click create opportunity with our client.
Yeah.
And then we're going to select the opportunity type, and we're going to go for buyer.
I have to keep working. Can't take Fridays. Yeah.
And then once we have our buyer here, we're going to go down and we're going to say we need to add a commission rate. I usually put 3 here. It's important for command, however, it's not as vital. It's not like the EBBA because this could change at any time. It doesn't really matter. You can put whatever there, but I put 3. And then we are going to select appointments, and we're going to select scheduled. Right, and you can select whatever phase that you're at, whatever stage that you are at, you can change that. This is just for example purposes. And then you hit create. And now we have right here, it has Derek McKenzie dash buyer. I'll click that. Now, I personally, I like my opportunity to have the address on it as well. So we're gonna do 1312 Apple Street. And then Derek McKenzie buyer. This way I can also look it up by the name of the property's address.
Is that Derek's address or the?
That's the address
He's-
of the house that we're gonna be purchasing.
Oh, so this is somebody you already know.
This is
buying a
me.
specific
Derek.
house.
Yeah.
Okay,
So this is me picking up my buyer, and I'm getting my buyer's opportunity together. So this is
so what if
the,
we have a buyer that hasn't decided on a house yet?
if you
What do
have, then you
put?
just
You
put
just
their
give their
name.
name,
Yeah,
okay.
right. Then I'm gonna go to documents. And we're gonna want to pick the checklist type first. So we click pick checklist type. And then 9 times out of 10, you're selling a house that's already been sold before. So we do resale. If you're doing a new construction, you do new construction. But for this purpose, we're gonna go resale. And then we're gonna go over here to start a transaction. And this is gonna take us to DocuSign. You'll have to enter in your password and your ID. And it will preload the sheet for you, the room. So it'll give you a bunch of files that you might or might not need. I like to go to details, and I like to fill in a few of these things and make sure that it's correct. So I'll go down to, for example, the buyer, make sure that his name's there, the phone number, and his email is there. And then I'll also go to make sure that my information is correct too. All right, that all looks good. If you have the MLS ID number, you can put that in. If you have the address to the place, you could put that in. Otherwise, if you're just doing it for EBBA purposes, you won't have that information yet. You'll go to documents, and then you're going to click add. You click DocuSign forms. And then here, it's where you have all of the forms that are in DocuSign that you can use. What we want to look at is in the libraries. The libraries are all the forms separated into 4 different categories. You have the Florida Association of Realtor category, which is all the contract stuff. That's the contract documents, standard and the as-is contract documents. Everything that's issued by the Florida Association of Realtors is in this library. Keller Williams, South Florida. I don't know why we have this in ours, but we're not part of the South Florida region, and it's just a bunch of cover sheets. The KW 138, these are all documents that Keller Williams our market center has had created by their legal system. So they want you to use these as much as possible. And then we have the Stellar MLS forms. These are all forms that Stellar has on their website that we need to use. So make sure you check that for like a status change or the listing entry form. Okay, so what we're looking for is in the KW 138 Florida. And if you go to this bar here, the search bar, and you type in exclusive, you'll get the exclusive buyer brokerage agreements. We have 4 of them. We have the NR, the SA, the TB, and the TN. NR stands for no relationship, or not non-representative, sorry, non-representative. The SA stands for single agency. The TB stands for transaction broker, and the TN stands for transition to transaction broker. We want to select the transition to transaction, and we're going to hit add selected. Now that we have that in our room, we're going to want to send this off to our buyer to be signed. If you want to have this printed so that you could do it in person, you'll click on it and then click on document actions and then click print. And that'll take you to the sheet that you can print a PDF, then you can fill that out by hand. I don't necessarily enter in information on here in the room. I'll click the box and then I'll click create envelope to create an envelope that I can send to my client for them to sign. I want to select my buyer agent role and the buyer 1 role. This will auto-populate the fields for signature and for initials for the buyer agent and for the buyer. And this is taking you to a page that's now called an envelope. So this is what would be stuffed in the envelope to be sent out to the buyer for signature. This right here is the order for signing. This is buyer agent will sign first, and then the buyer will sign second. If there was a third buyer, I would have them as marked as 2, so I could add recipient, and I can change that to 2, and that could be the third buyer, and they would both sign at the same time. They would receive the documents at the same time. If I change this one to 3, they would receive the document later on in the day after the buyer signs. So it's a chain. I sign, then it gets sent out to buyer 2. After buyer, it gets sent out to buyer 1. Then after buyer 1 signs, it'll get sent out to this address. We are going to delete this person because we're not using 2. Down here at the bottom, I like to make sure that the person receiving the envelope is not getting a weird message. So I just do exclusive buyer broker agreement. And that will make it a little bit more clear. And then I enter in, thank you. Here is the buyer. Just let me know if you have any questions. That way, they're not just getting a random thing that they need to sign. There's actually a little bit of an explanation, and the subject is somewhat conducive. Then I hit next. Okay. I got my name, or got the name of the buyer, Keller Williams Realty. Number 2 is the term. The term, this agreement will begin on the 26th. So and then if we're with buyers, I like to do it in either 6 months or 1 year. So we're gonna do 1 year for the sake of simplicity. type of property is gonna be residential. And the location is gonna be Florida. All right, so. Broker's obligations and the consumer obligations. I'm gonna have you guys read this on your own. If you have questions about the meaning or about the philosophy of what these terms and what these conditions are, please bring them up in a Q&A session. And as you can see, the initials have already been added at the bottom. A retainer is a non-refundable retainer of blank. I personally don't charge retainers. I do know that are agents out there who can and will. If you do charge a retainer, this is where you would put that information. Since I don't, I'm gonna put 0. Compensation. This is the new change to Florida law, or actually to national real estate law. We have to have a conversation more in depth about the compensation that we receive. I put down 3% on the buy side because that's what I want to get as a buyer representative. And otherwise, I put not available in all these other boxes.
I have a question
Yes.
about that. I don't know if you want me to wait till the end.
Please wait to the end.
Yeah.
And then get to it. Additional fees, if I'm hiring a transaction coordinator, or if I have a concierge service, or if I have a staging service that I add to this is where I put additional fees. Well, for buyers, you wouldn't really have a staging, but additional fees would go there. The protection period, if left blank 30 days, I like to say 180 days. Conditional termination. I don't charge for termination, so I put 0 here. If you do charge for termination, then that's where you would put that. And this is a single agent notice. We explain this to the clients. And then we explain what transition to transaction broker is to the clients as well. And we explain the difference to them. And then we have them sign. Other terms, if there are any other terms, you would put those here. They could be anything. For example, if I get offered less than 3%, I will take anything as low as 2%. If it's lower than 2%, the buyer is responsible for paying the difference between what I'm getting paid and 2%. And I put that there in better words. And then they sign. And then when I'm ready to send it off, I hit send. That goes to the first person in line, they sign, then I'll go to the second person in line. I usually put myself first so that I can have another opportunity to take a look at what I'm doing before I sign it. All right. And that is how we do the buyer brokerage agreement. Okay, I know you have questions. So what kind of questions did you have?
Mine is not about the contract itself, it's about commission.
Okay.
I know that if you put 3% on here and you find out that the clients want to buy a house, that you find out it's 4% that the seller was willing to pay. I keep hearing that people are like, well, then you could just go back, you can't take anything more unless you make an addendum to this. But wouldn't that defeat the purpose ethically of making sure?
No, I know what you're getting at.
Like, what was it?
Reason.
No, the whole reason behind.
The reason
NAR
why they
thing.
want you to get another document signed is because they want you to have the conversation with the buyer that you are getting 4%.
Okay.
Right? So if you were to just do 3%, then you were to get 4%. Before, we never had to do this part. We didn't even have to have this.
Okay.
Right? So before, it was if we were going to get a buyer brokerage agreement signed, agents would say things like, don't worry about compensation, or compensation is paid by seller at close. They would put that on additional line on that other terms.
Okay.
Is that seller pays buyer broker's commission. That would be entered into that. What they don't want to see is us not having a conversation with the buyers about commission. So
I understand
when we have
now.
that conversation at 3%, and then all of a sudden 4% comes in, now we have to have another conversation and say, hey, Mr. Buyer, I was offered 4% to take this listing. Do you mind signing so that I can get that money that was told that I could have? And they could say, yeah, sure, absolutely, no problem. Or they could say, well, don't you think it would be better if I got that 1%, not you? And then you could say, no, it wouldn't be better. Why would that be better?
So.
And they'd be like, well, it would make it so that I could get my floors done. Or, I could buy down a point and I'll be saving $8,000 over the next 2 years. So they can negotiate because at the end of the day, compensation is negotiable. And so if they don't, then all of a sudden, the negotiations don't have to end well. So negotiations can be like, okay, well, I'm not gonna work for you anymore, Mr. Buyer. Good luck getting this under contract. And then they can go to the seller and, whatever, if you want to. I would just, if they got confrontational, I would say, okay, well, I'll just stick with 3%, and then I'll never help you ever again, or whatever it is, or maybe I will help you again. I don't know.
The context is really important, as a new agent,
Mhm.
because, we always hear like the NAR settlement. And a lot of people are repeating it, but when we don't know because we're brand new that
Right.
there didn't used to be a discussion at all,
Mhm.
that it was just seller will pay. So
Yes.
that makes it much more
That's why they
clear
did this. Yeah.
why this is so
And-
important and why that's not an ethical violation
Yes.
to say, okay, they're
Going
offering
back.
4, can I
It's only
Now we know
unethical.
why.
It's only unethical if you don't
disclose?
do it. Yeah, and that's
Right.
why as far as what I understand, that's why they have it set up like that. You can go back and do another agreement, or you can make
Just
another
accept-
addendum
yeah.
to it and say, we're changing the commission on here because
But
we
the buyer's
negotiated
always
it.
aware.
But the buyer has to be
Right,
aware,
okay.
because otherwise they wouldn't be aware, and all of a sudden they're like, I thought you were getting 3%, and it's looking more like 4.5%. How did that work? Were you negotiating for yourself and not for me? Now also,
Right.
wait, you made more money off of this deal than you said you were gonna make, and now, so that's why the title company will not even let you get into that position without having this buyer brokerage agreement with that filled out correctly.
Okay,
So if there was an issue with that, you would just have that conversation with the buyer.
all right.
And I honestly think that the new rules are better for agents, because it makes it so that now we're having a conversation about it with the buyer and with the seller. And it shows that we are not worried about that. Like I was never worried about how much I made. I would take 2%, I would take 3%, didn't matter. I would take 1.5 if it meant that the buyer got the house. I would take 0 if I knew that that buyer was going to be someone that would be really, really appreciative of me doing my job and have clients lined up for me and all that. And they, there was a house of their dreams and all this other stuff. Yeah, let's get it done. Right. But now we have to have these conversations, and it just makes the people that we're working with a little bit more cognizant of what's going on, and they're happy to know that, okay, this is how it works. Because everybody knows that we're getting paid. Everybody knows that everybody's getting paid. It's just that they don't know how that we're getting paid. It's always been like, how do agents make so much money? Well, we get paid 3%, we get paid 4%, we get paid 2%. Now the conversation is being had and people can kind of wrap their minds around how it works. So, that I think is a good thing. A lot of agents been in it for a long time were complaining, oh, this is horrible, this is the end of the industry, this is crazy, why are they doing this? NAR stinks, NAR can't do anything. They didn't, nobody's not making any money. It's not like you hear people saying, well, we don't want agents make too much money, blah, 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 and you hear that. You'll start seeing that there's a lot of people that dislike agents. I'm gonna stop recording now too, because there's no way anybody needs to, we don't need to be getting into all that.